Hello, everybody. It is I, Mr. the Plague. How are you doing today? We're going to take a look at a recent video by Mr. Tim Pool, who seems to have an issue with the Mueller Report. Now, it isn't the issue that people think about. He's not anti-anything, really. But he's making a number of comments that I just think need to be addressed, because he really, really does miss the mark on several different things. And this needs to be... Oh, it's okay, Harpy. That's okay. Just settle down. Settle down. We'll let the fans take a look. I know you want to be on there, but this is for Mr. Tim Pool. He's more interesting anyway. So let's listen to what Mr. Tim Pool has to say, shall we?
CNN published this piece just the other day. Mueller's report looks bad for Obama. To put it simply,
Of course, the Mueller report looks bad for Obama. But I digress. We'll let you go on, Tim, so I can give my response.
Russian election meddling started in 2014. Obama knew about it, and they did nothing. Now, it is important to point out, as CNN does, that the writer Scott Jennings is a former special assistant to George W. Bush and a former campaign advisor to Mitch McConnell. And then they go on to list more about his work. Point is,
So he's a former campaign manager for Mitch McConnell. Really. The problem with Mitch McConnell is he was very virulently anti-Trump. He was a never-Trumper, so this is quite a surprise. But I digress.
likely a conservative guy, but it doesn't make his point any less valid. And I think when it comes to politics and the culture war, we have this problem of people assuming that simply because someone's liberal or conservative, their point isn't correct.
I wonder why people have that viewpoint, Mr. Poole. Could you have been part of that? When you were an activist and things were going on, were you part of the reason? Were you, Mr. Poole?
Or at least worthy of being considered. In this instance, I think it's fair to point out, Obama knew what was going on. I mean, think about it. Hillary Clinton was complaining about Russians, hacking and all that stuff in I think it was 2015. Where was Obama? Where?
That's not the question. Where do you expect Obama to be? What were you expecting Obama to do? Where were you expecting Obama to be lying? Where is his intent? Where has it always been? He's a leftist, just like you were, and you were still in full-throated support for the man.
Where was our intelligence apparatus in this country to do something about it before the election took place? And because they didn't, we ended up with years of complete crap, where they kept saying, Trump only won.
Where were they? Now you get to the point where you say where they were later on in your video. They were told to stand down. Now why were they told to do that? It's funny how you don't remember Obama and his gaffe. Where he stood up there and said, "Oh my, just tell Putin," when he's talking to Medvedev, "just tell Mr. Putin that I'll have more leeway once I become president." Where do you think he was? Where do you think the intelligence services were doing? They were doing what they're constitutionally told to do, obeying their duly appointed superiors over them, in this case, Mr. Obama.
Because the Russians helped him, and many of the weird French conspiracy weirdos still push that narrative, even though it's very, in reality, just not true. However, I will add, whether or not there was a massive impact of Russian meddling. It is so easy to create the spark that divides the left and the right beyond.
There is not any need to create the spark. What you don't understand, Tim, is the difference isn't the left. And you will come back talking about how the left has shifted, has gone further to the left. And I'm going to disagree with you. And I'm going to point out several factors as we discuss this to explain my point. But it's okay. The problem that you're seeing is the right. The problem that you're seeing is the right is tired about being lied about, Mr. Poole. They're tired of listening to the bullcrap the leftists have been spewing on a constant basis. Your only difference is now it's being exposed, but not by people like you.
Repair. And I think we're getting to that point, which is why, I've shown that graph from Quartz where it shows conservatives have like kind of condensed, but the Democrats have gone like that. The Democrats today are so far left.
Then the Democrats are separating. The left then is going further to the left. It isn't that they're separating because the right is separating. No, the left is diverging away from the founding principles of the Constitution and the country.
We need to get rid of the extremists on either side.
Why do you need to get rid of the extremists on the right? They're not the ones that everyone's gravitating toward, are they? So when you do your call, let's do the call of let's get rid of the extremists on both sides. You are basically saying a pox on both houses so nothing actually changes. Isn't that your real point? Isn't that what you really are going for?
Fortunately for this country, only one side has been adopting a new group of radical extremists as mainstream.
They are adopting a new group of radical extremists. They're the same radical extremists from the 1920s, the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s, 2000, 2010. They haven't changed. The leftists haven't changed. They're not new.
The reason I say this is fortunate is because we don't have extremist Republicans. We just have one side that's extreme, and we need to do what we can to bring people kind of back to the center and get rid of the extremists.
How can you bring them back, Tim? How do you intend to bring your brethren on the left back to the center?
And again, to clarify, it's not a good thing. It's just fortunate that it's not both becoming insane. While it's unfortunate both sides are kind of moving apart.
Once again, you just lied right there again, Tim. Both sides aren't moving apart. One side is staying still and the other side is running away. It isn't both sides moving apart from one another. It's one side leaving.
We got to deal with the far left extremists if we're going to stop this. It's like this. You got both left and the right, and the left went like that. So they like to claim this is actually rather hilarious. When I see progressives claim that the Republicans are the ones who have gone far right, they call Tucker Carlson far right, and it's like wait.
Down, Harpy, down. Relax. He's not anti Tucker Carlson. I know you want to grab Tucker Carlson. I know you've been looking to chew on his bones. Just relax, Harpy. Just relax.
Wait, hold on. Tucker's been on TV for a decade, more than a decade. Okay, he sat down with Cenk Uygur and they shared their opinions, and they're like they agreed on many things.
Okay, here's a problem though, Tim. If Tucker Carlson is agreeing with Cenk Uygur isn't center-left. Not by any stretch of the imagination. If he's not center-left, then what's the big disagreement about? Do you have the courage to actually say what the disagreement is between them?
The far left is creating this narrative at their mainstream, and if that happens, there's no repairing the damage. There's none. Because they view regular conservatives as extremists, when in reality, regular Democrats and regular conservatives...
Of course they viewed them as extremists. Perhaps, just perhaps, you should go back and take a look at the rhetoric of Al Gore as a senator when he sits up there and was railing that children are, that Republicans are trying to starve children. The rhetoric on the left isn't different, Tim. The concepts aren't any different since the 1980s, ever since the Democrats threw over their actual comedy, right, and decided to go full bore because Reagan drove them insane, because Reagan proved how bad they were. Ever since then, it's been one leftist screed after another with no intention of the mainstream media, or anyone in the media really, calling them out for it. You don't remember Robert Bork, but I do. You don't remember the disgraceful behavior of several of the people that you're talking about that you consider heroes today. People you voted for. You know, like Mr. Biden, who you voted for as vice president, for Barack Hussein Obama.
Agree on many, many things and can have normal, sane conversations while they probably begrudgingly don't like each other. The far left is literally calling conservatives Nazis. So we got...
They always have been. Did you somehow miss John Kerry and the commentary when he was talking about how George W. Bush was acting like a terrorist and sending troops in there to act like terrorists in Iraq? Did you somehow miss that, Tim? Oh, that's right. It was your formative years when you were getting ready to become an activist, where you were proud to be an activist and you were doing things good even though you knew you were lying, and then you decided no, lying isn't good, but you were tolerating it before then. The idea that somehow the lying just was something that just came up is absolutely nonsensical. You can't tell me you didn't realize that your side were a bunch of frickin' liars right from the get-go. Can you? Can you honestly say that? I find that hard to believe.
Gotta get rid of these extremists, but let's read on. The partisan warfare over the Mueller Report will rage, but one thing cannot be denied. Former President Barack Obama looks just plain bad. On his watch, the Russians meddled in our democracy while his administration did nothing about it. The Mueller Report flatly states that Russia began interfering in American democracy in 2014. Over the next couple of years, the effort blossomed into a robust attempt to interfere in our 2016 presidential election. The Obama administration knew this was going on and yet did nothing. In 2016, Obama's national security advisor...
Really? He did nothing about it. He had just got done pushing through Uranium-1. He had just gone through a number of different things, Tim. Now, I could go on and leave it there, but I think I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit here. I think it's probably better.
Assange stuff was happening. Hillary Clinton, apparently, she says it was a joke. When talking about Assange, she goes, "Can't we just drone this guy?" And people are like, he's in London. Like, but I'd be willing to bet if he was in a country, in the Middle East, yeah, they'd drone strike him.
No, they wouldn't have. You really don't understand anything about the drone program, and I'm not here to defend the drone program or what Obama did with it. But you don't even understand what happened with the drone program, do you, Tim? Do you? The problem, Tim, was the drone program under Obama was taken away from the military to be placed directly under the control of the CIA. So you took a weapons platform and you gave it under the direct control of the CIA, which you, of course, were directing. You know, with your wonderful CIA directors like John Brennan. Funny how his name in this entire thing never comes up. You don't understand our intelligence services, Tim. You don't understand where the failures actually are. You're too lazy to listen to people who do know. You don't want to listen because you have a negative view of anything that smacks of intelligence. But see, under the Obama administration, were you putting out videos like this? Were you saying, wait a minute here, we need to put a stop to this? Or were you going to Ferguson to further a false narrative that a cop had shot an innocent man? Which one, where were you, Tim? Well, that's right. That's right, Tim. You were in Ferguson, helping the protesters. You weren't in there being honest about what happened, were you? No.
So let's talk about Obama's foreign policy. He killed kids. He killed American citizens. He blew up women and children. You know, there's a joke, right?
When you're at war, Tim, women and children are going to die. This is the problem with people like you. You think that we're at war with just a small group of people. That we're not at war with a culture. We're not at war with an ideology. And the people, we're at war with the people who follow that ideology. We're not at war with the ideology itself. We're at war with the people who carry on that ideology. Are you going to tell me that those people didn't carry that ideology? How do you know? Don't come back and talk about this as, oh, they were just civilians. This is not a national fight the way you want it to be. It's the fight that exists. You may not like it. You may think it's horrible. And quite frankly, the placement of this drone program directly under the CIA was a major mistake. Because the CIA has a different view of what is a target than the military does. The military is looking for military results. So you're giving military weapons to the CIA that is just looking for intelligence results. Two separate things and two different philosophies. We could discuss this. All you would have to do is contact me and I could go over it with you. I doubt you will. I'm not holding my breath. I'm just a small little YouTuber here. But you don't know what you're talking about. And because of that, you're just talking out your butt. Do the terrorists walk around only carrying Kalashnikovs? Do the terrorists walk around only in uniform, or in uniform at all even? How do you know that a person is a terrorist or not? When you launch a drone, is it other people going to be possibly killed? Yes. That's very true. But that was true in World War II when we were dropping bombs as well. There were going to be casualties, and unintended casualties. But when you're talking about people who all have the same ideology, where the terrorists can walk out in the open, known terrorists, with their ideology intact, you can't assume that the people around them have a opposite ideology, can you? If so, why are they walking around in the open? Why are they walking around in these open areas? But you don't want to look at it from that standpoint, do you?
It's a horrifying dark comedy joke it was on Reddit. I don't know, a month or so ago. I saw it's here. So are you ready for this? What's the difference between a grade school and a terrorist headquarters? I don't know.
Exactly. Because the terrorists would use a grade school for their headquarters. In these regions, this is quite often what they do. Do you understand the ideology driving these people? Have you looked at what they will do and how they will violate, and that the people around them have zero problem letting them do it? Obama's compound was in the middle of a major city in Pakistan, where we captured him. And then, well, not quite captured him, executed him, if you want to look at it from that standpoint. In the middle of the compound, in the middle of Pakistan. Do you think people didn't know he was there? Do you think people didn't know who he was? Or what kind of ideology the people in the compound, at the very least, lean toward? Think about that, Tim. That's where we're at war.
Just fly the drone. That joke came out during the Obama era. At least my understanding. I mean, maybe it came out during Bush, but my understanding is in the Obama era, because we were hearing so much about how the drones were blowing up civilian buildings. Now we have this story, and once again we can see the failures of Obama. And it really, really makes me angry how people act like Obama was so great. What? Some domestic policy that was passed by Congress at the time, and Obama signed it off? But what did he do? When Russia started interfering...
What? Are you afraid to tell us what domestic program that you find so wonderful from Obama? Please let us know. You see, because Obama's failure wasn't just there, was it? And the Democrats' failure wasn't just there with that, was it, Tim? You can't point to the programs that worked. You can't take a look at the Democrat programs that were fostered under Obama and talk about how wonderful they were and how wonderful they are. Don't get me wrong. When the Affordable Care Act was passed, it was neither. But there were people that were helped. The majority of people in America weren't, but there were a select few. And of course, those are the stories you hear. Those are the stories you'll promote, not all the rest of them. And this is part of the problem, Tim. You're not honest either.
And they knew. What did they do? Nothing. The president is supposed to stand up to foreign interests that are interfering with our government, with our policy and our agenda, and they're not supposed to go and blow up weddings and women and children and other stupid bullshit. But that's Obama's legacy. And you know what's really annoying? All that it really comes down to, because perception is reality. That's the saying, right? Obama spoke well. He was.
Who says perception is reality? Who? Who exactly says that? Where did that term come from? Did it come from the right? Did it? I don't think so. Did it come from the conservative views? No. No, it doesn't. It comes from the left and expounded by the left.
Charismatic. And now people look back on that and they're like, man, wasn't Obama great? Why? Because he spoke well? And this is why I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. Because I recognize I don't care if they speak well. I was a witness in my life to someone who spoke very, very well, was very inspiring, and blew up kids. So do I give it...
It wasn't just a person that was very inspiring and spoke well and blew up kids. It was someone you voted for twice, wasn't it?
Look, Trump has done similar things. You know, he just vetoed the Saudi Yemen thing. I'm not trying to give him any special credit by saying this. The point is, I'm not going to look back fondly on Obama. I'm not going to be upset about what Trump is doing and then act like Obama was any better. Let's read some.
Why are we dealing with Yemen? Where did our involvement come from? You really remain ignorant, don't you? You don't bother to explain to people all the issues when it comes to this kind of foreign policy things. Do you realize, Tim? Do any of you who are listening to this realize that our involvement, our large-scale involvement, began when the rebels started firing missiles at our ships in international waters from Yemen? It began much sooner. I don't know if you guys remember the coal or not. You know, where the coal was in port and some wonderful Yemeni rebels came and waved as they drove their little boat right up to it and blew themselves and a massive hole in the coal. Do you remember that now? Do you remember who these people are? I don't think that you want to explore that attitude, though, do you?
Some more. Given Obama's record on Russia, one operating theory is that his people needed a smokescreen to obscure just how wrong they were. They blamed Trump. They even blamed Mitch McConnell in some twisted attempt to deflect blame to another branch of government. Yes, because you know what we can say? The Democratic leadership, Obama, the president, yes, the Democrats, and who he was supporting, were going to look real bad when it came out it was Obama who screwed this up.
But this was all known at the time. None of this was new. None of this is a surprise, Tim. Yet you support the Democrat leadership. You support the Democrats in toto. Why? You say that you're a leftist and their views are so superior to conservatives. Really, it's funny because when you talk about your view of things, what you focus on has no sense of priority. And that's where the problem is, Tim. Your views are based on how you feel, not about the outcome, not about what is actually happening. It's about how you feel about an issue, which is why when your policies fail, you still feel the same way. So you continue to go down that same road because, see, you don't have any real principles, do you?
So what do? They blame Trump. Trump colluded. That way you couldn't point the finger at Hillary and say, no, this was a Democratic president. No, Trump was colluding with them, so he gets more of the blame. And you know what? They ate it right up. The Democrats did. But it doesn't matter because Trump still won. And
it wasn't just the quote-unquote Democrats that did. It was the main narrative of the mainstream media and the outlets that you had worked with and were working with during that time frame, Tim.
Now here we are 2 years later, and it was probably the biggest mistake they're ever going to make. Because how many Americans now are going to say, I just think you guys are crazy?
You're totally ignoring what happened here. What you're saying and what you're accusing them of doing is falsely accusing another American on a different political spectrum of lying and falsely accusing them to justify their actions using the power of the government. This is the ultimate in corruption. The ultimate in corruption, Tim. But it wasn't a priority for you, and it's still not a priority for you. Finding out who these corrupt individuals are and putting them in jail isn't a priority for you. Looking at the corruption from Hillary Clinton's campaign and Hillary herself and putting her in jail wasn't a priority for you, was it? The Benghazi thing happened in the first administration, first term of the Obama administration. And yet, what was your attitude in 2014, Tim? Well, let's go take a look at Ferguson, shall we?
The Russia Gators have lost their mind. You know, this is why Rachel Maddow, in my opinion, her ratings dropped substantially. Because you had sane people watching saying like, "Well, this Russia stuff's crazy," and they're watching and they want to know more, and then Mueller report, sorry, and so they go, "All right, I'm out. That was a waste of time," and our ratings dropped like 20% overnight. There are still people who refuse to let it go. So let's just read the conclusion and we'll get out of here. If you consider Russian election interference a crisis for democracy, then you cannot read the Mueller report, adding it to the available public evidence and conclude anything.
The crisis for democracy in this country has to do with the abuse of power by the Obama administration. But you're not going to talk about that, are you?
Other than Barack Obama spectacularly failed America. Subsequent investigations of this matter should explore how and why Obama's White House failed and whether they invented the collusion narrative to cover up those failures. Nah, I can't disagree. This happened on Obama's watch, and I'd like to know why the American intelligence apparatus failed in.
Funny. That's quite amusing to me, Tim. You want to find out why the intelligence apparatus failed? It isn't difficult to figure that out. It wasn't that the intelligence apparatus failed. It's that the corruption in the Democrat Party led to it. There was no failure on the part of the intelligence community. If they're told to stand down, they have to stand down, Tim. What do you mean that's where you want to go? You're going to ignore the fact of all the illegality being done by the Obama administration because you want to find out how the intelligence apparatus failed? I'm questioning your priorities. This is the problem with you.
Preventing this from happening. I'm not saying I assume that we're invincible. You know, sometimes the United States gets impacted by foreign attacks, terror attacks, cyber attacks. I'd like to know where the failure was so that doesn't happen again. I'd like to know what Obama did in 2014 that resulted in us not being able to prevent the election interference. I'm not going to pass the buck on anybody else other than the guard who was on duty. Think about it this way. You hire a guard and he's standing in front of your house. While he's standing in front of your house, someone breaks in and steals your shit. Then you hire a new guard. Everyone starts saying the new guard was colluding with the thief. And for 2 years, they investigate that. Instead of asking how, they broke into the house when the other guy was on duty.
You don't have to ask, Tim. All you have to do is be willing to open your mind and have an open mind to who these people are. You have to let go of your view that being on the left, Tim, means you're a better person, that you somehow care. That somehow when somebody says they're trying to help and there's no help to these people and their conditions don't change and nothing changes for them. When you look at that and you keep going, well, these programs, we don't want to end these programs. Oh, it's nuanced. I know that's your favorite word. It's nuanced. It's nuanced. But you really don't understand the problem philosophically. You don't understand the underpinnings. You keep wanting something to happen and wishing for it and keep getting disappointed.
I hate politics. I don't know why I pay attention to this stuff. Stick around. Next video coming up at...
Okay, so he goes on now to talk about his next video, which is fine and dandy. For everything. But the reality is, Mr. Poole, you are the problem. Okay, Harpy, time to go back into your nest. There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead. And I'll end my spiel for the day, folks. I appreciate you all coming out. But Tim, if you can't understand what's going on with the intel services, start talking to people who know something about them. Start taking a look at them. start examining them. But before you even do that, start re-examining what you feel when you talk about who the enemy is. Talk about how do you identify the enemy? Where do you find the enemy? What do you need to do to fight this enemy? You know, I'm hoping that we have the same enemy, the terrorists, the radicals who want to destroy the country. I hope you can start to understand that an enemy isn't just the guy who screams Allahu Akbar and kills himself. It's everyone who feeds him, clothes him, hides him, supports him, and cheers him on. I realize it's a scary thought, because now you're including a whole lot of people you don't want to include. But when it comes to the enemies in America inside, it's about time you took a real good examination of who the left, the people that you claim to be, really and truly are. And stop the stupid nonsense of pox on both houses. Thank you for listening, everybody. I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you all later.